Great ideas are exciting, but ideas alone don't change the world. Execution does. And in this episode, we tackle the nuts and bolts of bringing a disruptive idea to life. But first, share this podcast with a friend. Let them know they are about to attain the ability to change the world. Also, hit the like button and get busy in the comments. I read them all, and even if they're about your product or service. So drop me a line. Now, as we continue our disruptive innovation, let's get into part 3. How do you go from that light bulb moment or eureka moment to actually developing a product or service that shakes up the market? We'll discuss strategies for prototyping, testing your concept, iterating through feedback, and scaling up without losing what makes your idea special. We'll also talk about the inevitable pivots and course corrections that happen along the way. Executing a disruptive innovation requires a mix of creativity, agility, and relentless focus. By the end of this episode, you'll have a blueprint for turning your big idea into real-world impact, just as many successful disruptors have done before. Often after overcoming initial failures. So remember, as an ounce of execution is worth more than a ton of theory, we're going to dive into how to execute effectively. Start small, prototype, and test. When you have a disruptive idea, it's tempting to dream of the end game, the full-featured product, the widespread adoption, the masses cheering your name. But the journey to get there starts with small steps. The best disruptors often begin with a minimum viable product, or MVP, the simplest version of the idea that can be tested with real customers. Don't worry about it being perfect. Worry about getting it into people's hands to learn from it. As we heard in the last episode, the folks at AWCI advise just start on a small scale and do it today. That means building a prototype or launching a small pilot as soon as possible. It can be a rough beta version of an app or a pop-up event to trial a new service or a limited run of your product. Action creates information. Once your idea meets the real world, you'll start getting feedback and discovering what works and what doesn't. For example, take Dropbox. Before building their full product, the founder made a simple demo to gauge interest in a seamless file syncing service. The enthusiastic response validated the idea before a line of code was fully written. Or consider the founders of Airbnb. After the first success with renting airbeds during a conference, they didn't immediately scale up to million listings. They iterated city by city, learning what hosts and guests needed, improving their platform and service gradually. Early on, even went door to door to photograph hosts, apartments, and understand their users, effectively refining their service on the fly. The lesson is, don't be afraid to launch rough versions of your offering. As LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman famously said, if you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you're launching too late. Embrace the learning process. Pair vision now with flawless execution, and quality matters. While you start small, keep an eye on executing quality. A brilliant idea can flop if poorly executed. Conversely, great execution can make even a modest idea take off. Ideas are cheap. Execution is what counts. This doesn't mean your MVP has to have all the bells and whistles. It means whatever you do implement, do it well. Avi Pardo, co-founder of Leap Expert, put it succinctly. You must pair innovation with flawless execution to enable scale and sustained impact. Not just scaling, with sustained impact. Ensure new ideas can reach mass adoption and fundamentally reshape industries. In practice, this means paying attention to details that affect your user experience and readability. If you launch an app, for instance, it needs to actually work smoothly and solve the problem it claims to, even if it only has a few features at first. If you open a new kind of cafe as a disruptive concept, the coffee and service still need to be excellent, even if your concept is unique. Execution also means operational savvy. Disruptive businesses often require rethinking processes, supply chains, or service delivery methods. Once you have proof of concept, start figuring out how to deliver consistently as you grow. Develop systems that can scale in the early stages. You, as the founder, might do a bit of everything: customer support, coding, packing boxes, accounting, you name it, marketing, branding, etc. That's fine and often necessary, but simultaneously think about how you will scale up operations if demand surges. Sometimes disruptors stumble, not because the idea isn't loved, but because they can't fulfill the demand they created. Imagine a viral product that the company can't manufacture and get in people's hands fast enough. Customers will just simply move on, or a competitor will take that opportunity to replace you. So part of executing is planning for growth. Secure reliable suppliers, or find partners that can streamline the delivery of your products and services. Stay agile. Iterate and pivot when needed. So no plan survives first contact with customers intact. Be ready to iterate. That is, refine and improve your offering, continuously based on feedback and data. In last episode, we talked about listening to customers to find an idea. That listening continues through execution. In fact, if you don't listen to your customers at all, you don't have a business, you have a mirror. So listen to your customers is a process you do across all forms of the business, when you're disrupting, creating a new line, to when your solid foundation has been laid and you're discovering new features and new items to add. Don't just throw in AI because it sounds cool. Encourage early users to give honest feedback. Which features do you love? What confuses you? What additional problems do they encounter? Use that insight to make rapid improvements. In Silicon Valley, they often talk about pivoting, which means fundamentally changing direction when your current approach isn't working as hoped. Pivoting isn't failure, it's often a smart adjustment on the path to success. A famous example of a successful pivot is Slack. We mentioned Slack before, but it's now a $25 billion company, providing workplace communication software. But it started as a completely different product. It started as a multiplayer online game. Stuart Butterfield and his team at Tiny Speck were developing a quirky game called Glitch. The game itself never became a hit and was eventually shut down. However, during development, the team had built an internal communication tool to coordinate their work, essentially a chat app with channels and file sharing to help their distributed team collaborate on this game. That tool proved incredibly useful to them, and when the game failed, Butterfield noticed that this internal tool had broader potential. The company pivoted from gaming to enterprise communication, polishing the chat tool and launching it as Slack. It was a dramatic shift from trying to entertain gamers to catering to business productivity, and it worked brilliantly. Slack filled a huge gap in workplace communication and grew astronomically. The Slack story teaches a couple of things. One, to be open to the possibility that the real value you have may not be what you first intended to build. Second, a failure can contain the seeds of success if you're willing to adapt. As one analysis noted, sometimes your biggest breakthrough may come from solving a problem that seems insignificant at first. Great ideas often come from unexpected places. Slack's team solved their own small communication problem, and it turned out to be a big solution for the rest of the world. Most pivots are less extreme than Slack's, but the principle stands. Pay attention to what works and what doesn't. Then refine your strategy. This could mean changing your target market, modifying your product's features, your pricing, your services, or even overhauling your entire revenue model. Instagram famously pivoted from a location-based check-in app to a photo sharing app that, after noticing users were really into the photo filters part of their original app. Netflix pivoted from mail-order DVDs to streaming way before the streaming wars started. Like, they founded the streaming wars. They just knew this entire potential existed. And when technology and bandwidth finally caught up, they became the hallmark success story of the stream wars. These companies remained true to their original vision, delivering value to their customers, but they were flexible about the how. Okay, next one, fall fast and learn faster. So in disruptive ventures, failure in small doses is not just inevitable, it's actually an important part of the process. In fact, I say the same thing when you're creating a commercial or brand or something. You're going to have components that just aren't going to resonate with the target audience, they're not going to resonate with. This is a completely part of the creative review process, and failure is a standard process of life. And it's an important process when you begin to disrupt and innovate. Practicing a fall fast mentality means you try things, and if something's not working, you accept it quickly that's not working, and you move on with new knowledge. Resilient disruptors treat failures and mistakes as learning opportunities rather than final defeats. A HubSpot article on Startup Lessons cited that many entrepreneurs emphasize having a tolerance for failure and the resilience to learn and pivot. One startup founder said, "Be willing to fail, learn, adjust, and pivot when needed while always listening to your customers. Implement changes quickly." This captures it perfectly. Listen, learn, adjust. Listen, learn, adjust. Every misstep is teaching you something about the market of your product. It's like debugging a program. Each bug found and fixed gets you closer to a smooth running system. To execute like a disruptor, create a culture, even if it's just you and a co-founder at first, where it's okay to admit something isn't working and change course. That humility and flexibility can save your business. If you've launched a feature that users don't care about, don't stubbornly keep investing into it due to pride. Reallocate your energy and resources to what is resonating. If you're offering a service but customers keep asking for a slightly different service, consider doubling down on what they're pulling you towards and make that change. The history of business is full of accidental discoveries and companies that ended up doing something different, often better than originally planned, because they paid attention to feedback. Another tip, measure what matters. Use key metrics to track if your execution is hitting the mark. It could be customer acquisition numbers, engagement time, repeat purchase rates, whatever it is relevant to your idea's success. Metrics, remember, everything's a numbers game. Numbers will tell you objectively if that last change improved things or not, but also balance quantitative data with quantitative insights, like user interviews, so you understand the why behind the numbers, why something is working and why it isn't. Now let's talk about scaling up, building the machine. Let's say your minimal viable product, your MVP, is a hit, and customers are loving the innovation you bought. Great. They're loving the development, the system and service you created. Congratulations! Now the real fun and adventure and hard work begins. Scaling up. See, scaling means extending or expanding your operations to serve a growing customer base while maintaining quality and reliability. It can be tricky. Growth has tripped up many startups that weren't prepared. So to scale successfully, you often need to build a team and infrastructure around your idea. That means hiring or partnering for skills and complement yours. Disruptors need not only vision leaders, but they also need to be more than that. They need to be people who can execute on marketing, customer support, tech, finance, as the business grows. But now you can consider hiring the right people, finding pain points you have personally, finding what customers need, hiring the right people as part of that seamless execution process. As A.V. Pardo observed, disruptors excel because they create rigorous hiring practices focused on culture fit, complementary skills, and potential for growth. They invest in developing their teams, creating environments that empower people to take ownership and innovate. In short, to keep executing well at larger scale, surround yourself with talent that believes in your mission and can carry it forward. Your early team will shape the culture of your company. If you foster a culture of innovation, ownership, and agility, that DNA will help your business stay disruptive, even as it expands. We'll talk more about sustaining a disruptor culture in episode 5, so stay tuned. But now let's talk about operationally. Scaling might involve automating parts of your process, using artificial intelligence on some key components, maybe establishing standards and operating procedures. possibly securing additional capital funding to support growth. One caution, don't grow faster than you can maintain your standards. A mantra for many disruptors is nail it, then scale it. Nail the experience on a smaller scale first. Make sure your customers are truly delighted and that your unit economics make sense. Then pour fuel in the fire and watch it grow. If you scale a flawed experience, you're just spreading mediocrity and that flawed experience faster and faster, and eventually it's going to all collapse like a house of cards. So let's talk about real-world examples. Execution and iteration. Consider Tesla, the electric car disruptor. Elon Musk's vision was huge to accelerate the transition to sustainable transportation. But Tesla started with a very small-scale product. You may not know this, the Tesla Roadster, a luxury sports car built on a Lotus chassis. Essentially, a proof of concept that an electric car could be sexy and fast. They only produced a limited number of Roadsters, but it wasn't a mass market car. And it wasn't intended to be. It was Tesla's MVP, minimal viable product, to test engineering and market appetite. With lessons learned and buzz generated, Tesla then moved to the Model S. Higher volume, but still premium and luxury and expensive, establishing Tesla as a serious automaker. Only after years of iterating on a battery, tech motors, and production did Tesla attempt the Model 3 for the mass market. Along the way, there were countless execution challenges, production delays, quality issues, even near bankruptcy. Tesla had to learn and adapt constantly, redesigning manufacturing processes, improving battery ranges, updating software. Musk often said that they were building the machine that builds the machine, highlighting that scaling production was a critical innovation as much as the car itself. Today, Tesla has disrupted the auto industry, but that came through gritty execution, not just the initial idea of an electric vehicle. They built gigafactories, rethought supply chains, like sourcing battery materials, and continuously improved their cars via software updates. That result is an agile manufacturing model more akin to Silicon Valley than Detroit, which incumbents now scramble to emulate. The Tesla journey underscores execution in disruptive innovation, often requires innovating on your processes and delivery, not just the product. So let's wrap up, turning your vision into reality. To sum up today's podcast, executing a disruptive idea involves a balance of bold vision and pragmatic action. You have to keep your eye on the big goal, the change you want to make, while methodically solving the day-to-day problems of product development, customer acquisition, and operations. It's a bit like building a rocket while flying it. There will be turbulence, course corrections, lots of scares, but if you stay agile, you focus on delivering value, you can reach new heights that once seemed impossible. Here's a few final execution tips. 1. Maintain your focus on the core value. It's easy to get feature creep or pursue too many ideas at once. Remember the core problem you're trying to solve and excel at that. As Phil McKinney says, when it comes to innovation, an ounce of execution is worth more than a ton of theory. Focus on executing the key thing that matters rather than theorizing about a dozen future possibilities. 2. Keep the customer at the center. In every iteration and improvement, ask how it benefits the customer. Ask the customer, does this benefit you? How do you feel about this feature before it's released? This keeps your execution on the right track. As you execute, continue gathering customer input. It's like a continuous feedback loop, guiding your development. 3. Stay committed, but not attached. Commit to your vision, but don't be overly attached to the way you reach it, the how. If evidence shows a different approach would work better, be brave enough to pivot. This flexibility can make the difference between a company that fades and one that becomes a legend. By executing well, you transform your idea into impact. You create real change for your customers and perhaps for society. As we move to the next episode, we'll address the flip side of that journey, the challenges, risks, and rough practices you'll face as a disruptor. Because let's be honest, doing something new isn't easy. and not everyone will cheer you on. So in episode 4, will be all about overcoming the challenges of being a disruptor or being an entrepreneur. If you have someone that's an entrepreneur, or you have someone that's being creative and trying to do something and it's taking them a long time and they'll feel a little disheartened, the next episode is written for them. From naysayers to incumbents, fighting all this internal doubt, all your competitors, and finding a way to stand out. We'll prepare you to weather the storm. But for now, from the words of Elon Musk, when something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. If you truly believe in your disruptive idea, execute with that determination. Odds are just numbers. Passionate execution can beat the odds. I hope you found this episode to your liking. If you have, hit a moment, hit like, subscribe, hit that little bell, drop me a comment. Hey, even if it's about a product or service that you're creating, that you're innovating with, drop me a comment. Maybe give you some feedback. I pray right now that the Lord be with you, that He gives you peace in everything you do, that as you learn to innovate, and He directs your steps, that He orders your steps, that He guides you, that His Spirit be with you in everything you do to accomplish, that you have that ability, that God-given strength to create something from nothing with your hands and your feet. May He guide you and grant you peace in everything you do. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm Justin Kashmirchik, the Jump Cut King, and we'll see you next time, right here on Create.